Coming up on today's show, PlayStation had their best year ever, Xbox had their best quarter ever, and Nintendo is selling a golden Wii. Keep a straight face, everybody. It's exactly what you think it is. Welcome to the show, everybody. What's good? Welcome to another episode of the What's Good Games podcast, your source for video game news, commentary, analysis, and of course, the funny stuff. Don't forget that. Every Friday, I'm one of your hosts, Andrea Renee, joined by Miss Christine Steimer.
Oh, hello.
And Miss Brittany Brombacher.
Oh, hello.
And joining us is Riana Manuel.
Do it.
Oh, hello.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. I love it. You guys just keep one up each other every week. It's great. It's wonderful. Also, props Ree for once again having this dope background light that matches our graphics package just perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you.
It looks fantastic. So good to have you back on the show. We're excited to hear all of your opinions about the video game news of the week and, of course, chat with you about what you've been playing. I bet y'all can guess what Ree's been playing.
Resident Evil.
Yeah, exactly. I've been playing all the horror games. Surprise.
Just a complete turn of character for Rihanna. All right. Well, you know what? We're not going to dally too much at the top here because there's quite a bit of news this week. I do want to give a big thank you to April's Patreon producers, Chewy's Godson, Alex Rigopulos, Faris Attieh, Justin Foshee, Marcus Ian Brown, Trevor Starkey, Mohammed Mohammed, Punkdefied, ProgramAlice, ExcessOddities, Rob Lehnert, and Layne. Welcome to our fantastic Patreon community. Chris Fernandez, Ben D, Layne, and MJ Gainsware. Gainsware? I don't know.
Ganser.
I don't know.
From our long
Ganser?
feud with Brandon K. Gann. I don't know how to say it now. Is it Gain or Gone? Who
Gonsoir.
can say? Thank you to everybody who supports the show and to everybody who stopped by the happy hour Q&A last weekend. If you missed it, no worries. You can catch the archive at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames. And I believe the Patreon exclusive podcast is going up soon.
It's up, girl.
Oh, wonderful.
Hey,
Oh,
it's up,
yes.
then it's stuck.
Yes. That's a good job, Ree.
Spoilers, we talk a lot about baby stuff. So if you're in for that, then you'll definitely want to check out that exclusive Patreon podcast. And Brittany, it looks like we have a couple new podcast reviewers.
We do. We have Casio. And I say it because there's an exclamation point after the end of their name. So I wanted to respect that. We have the great D. Seco.
Porquecho.
Porquecho. We have Kurt Boy 94 and Dubspaz 93. Thank you all so much for your reviews. They make us feel warm and fuzzy. I was going to say in many different ways, but then that could be misinterpreted and then it would get weird. TLDR, your reviews help us. Thank you.
True. They do. And I also want to say thank you so much to A Jar of Ashes, a graphic novel, our sponsor for this week's episode. We'll tell you more about that project in just a little bit. Let's dive into the news because there's some really fun stories this week, starting with PlayStation's best year ever as PS5 shipments pass 7.8 million. Britt, you pulled this story. Would you like to recap all of the cool PlayStation news?
I would love it, Andrea. It'd be the honor of my life. All right. So Sony has released its latest financial earnings report for the latest fiscal year, and it's a real doozy. The industry giant's latest hardware, PS5, has shipped a staggering 7.8 million units since its launch back in November of 2020, exceeding its sales forecast and leading to record profits for Sony's game and network division. Despite distribution issues and ongoing component shortages, PlayStation 5's launch was an incredible success for Sony, shifting more consoles in its release period than last generation's PlayStation 4, though it should be noted that PS4 was made available in fewer territories at launch than PS5. Combined sales of hardware, software, DLC, and PlayStation Plus subscribers led to an overall record-breaking revenue of $24.4 billion for the fiscal year. Speaking of PS4, sales and shipments continue to slow on Sony's trusty black box, which now stands at a very impressive 115.9 million lifetime shipments. 1 million PS4 consoles have still moved from store shelves since the start of 2021, showing that there is life in the old dog yet. In regards to software, PS4 and PS5 sold a combined 61.4 million units in the fourth quarter of 2020, down a hefty 3.9 million units on the previous year, but still driving some 6.22 billion in revenue. Digital sales continue to dominate, with 79% of all software sales purchased as downloadable titles. Paid subscription service PlayStation Plus continues to grow each year, currently standing at 47.6 million users, an increase of over 6 million users from the previous fiscal year.
That is bonkers. 47 million PlayStation Plus users.
How many does Game Pass have? I can't remember.
Game Pass specifically announced 10 million, but Xbox Live Gold members, I don't know if we've gotten a recent update with how many gold members there are.
So Xbox Game Pass has 18 million as of March last month.
Look
so
at them go.
They've upped that. Yeah. Wow.
Growth.
Yeah. That's impressive for both.
I'm catching my breath.
Yeah, sure. So I added a couple more details. So in addition to all of the numbers that we got that Brittany just read out, there's a little bit more from the earnings call that was reported on. So I pulled this from Game Rant. Sony plans to start aggressively investing in its first-party studios in the year ahead, which means you can expect bigger things from teams such as Naughty Dog, Santa Monica Studio, and beyond. The CFO, Hiroki Totoki, discussed the company's plans for its gaming efforts in the latest Sony quarterly financials conference call. Totoki noted that the company plans to increase development, personnel, and other costs of our in-house studios by 20 billion yen, or $180 million USD, in its current financial forecast. He also cited PlayStation partnering with Jade Raymond's new studio, which we talked about last week, and of course the other announcement of I want to say Raven Entertainment, but it's not. That's a different studio. Haven
Firewalk?
Entertainment Studios is the name of Jade Raymond's company, and then the other AAA project, multiplayer project that we talked about.
Firewalk Studios or whatever.
That's it, Firewalk Studios.
Got you, girl.
So clearly, PlayStation having just a fantastic year during the pandemic. Obviously, we saw growth across video games at large. I do think it's really impressive that despite all of the troubles people have had and continue to have getting access to the PlayStation 5, they were able to sell over 7 million units. Like, that's pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super impressive. And like anecdotally, we all have PS5s, but I hear people at work and online saying they're still having trouble finding them. But it's very encouraging to see that they're still able to keep these numbers up and exceed their expectations, even with the shortages. Because I mean, just always good and healthy for us gamers is to see them succeed. So really, really happy that it hasn't slowed them down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just kind of like that thing we've talked about before where you see the narrative on social media and everywhere. Everyone's like, oh my God, like I can't get a PS5. No one's able to get a PS5. And then you see that number. It does make you wonder, though, how many would have been sold had we not been in the middle of, a little pandemic. Makes you wonder, like, how many they actually could have pushed.
Yeah.
A staggering number, methinks.
Yeah, I think that even if we weren't in a pandemic, I think they still would have probably sold a lot because they had a pretty strong launch lineup of games that came out, even with some of the other games that got delayed and pushed out of fourth quarter last year. I do think it's interesting to note that the PS5 was available in more markets than the PS4 was. It's something that I definitely forgot about that certainly helped them in their overall sales. But I did think it was interesting that the march of digital continues, and obviously the pandemic clearly contributed to the rise of digital in 2020 numbers because you couldn't go down to the store on
or
the
you
corner
might not
and
have
do a
wanted to.
Right, exactly. But yeah, Steimer, any thoughts on these numbers?
What about the aggressively investing part? You like that?
I do like an aggressive investment. Don't dilly-dally with them. I mean, yeah, no, I think it's interesting. Kind of all the points that you already touched on, like that technically they probably could have maybe done more or better had the old panorama, as some people like to say on the internet. That happens. I think it's funny using a different word. And then the investment on the first party studios, I think, is interesting, mostly because as we've kind of like, there's basically been a lot of questions, I think, from the internet of like, how are they going to compete with Games Pass? And now they're talking about we're already having our best year ever, even with supply issues. So to me, that was kind of where I was always trying to point. Like, they will not unless they feel the need to. And right now, it kind of feels like they might not be feeling the heat whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they haven't been, right? They've been riding high.
Yeah.
Off of a fantastic PS4 generation, going into clearly a strong PS5 opening. And I think what this overall means is that it's just great for gamers. Like, it's great when there's healthy competition. I don't think any of us want to see any of these platforms fail or flop. Like, it's not fun when you see, like, what happened to Google Stadia and that studio of over 150 developers, right? Like, nobody wants that. We want them making games and making cool products that help diversify the landscape. So congrats to everybody over at PlayStation. Keep crushing it. And
speaking of crushing it.
Yeah, speaking of crushing it, PlayStation isn't the only company crushing it these days. Xbox has enjoyed its best third quarter ever, with an assist from that Bethesda and ZeniMax acquisition, of course. So this write-up comes from IGN. The gaming division over at Microsoft just had its best Q3 ever, not only thanks to the ongoing sales of the Xbox Series S and the X, but also in no small part due to them basically tackling an entire extra company into their revenue for the last 3 weeks of the quarter. That certainly helps. I mean, they did have to pay for it, so that's going to come out in the P&L at some point. In its earnings this week, Microsoft reported gaming revenue was up 50%. That's a 5-0, you guys, year over year, jumping from $2.3 billion for the same period last year to $3.53 billion this year. It's not a record quarter overall, as Microsoft's gaming revenues for October through December of last year spiked past $5 billion for the first time, but it is for the third quarter, so worth noting. Obviously, the Xbox Series X and S are still being new and obviously still difficult to get for most people, was a major factor in the revenue spike. The shift from a quiet quarter in January to March 2020 has now brought the company's hardware sales to a whopping 232% from this time last year. But
that's a sexy number.
It is a sexy number. 232%. Woo!
Fuck me up, fam.
But hardware was far from the only culprit in Microsoft's excellent gaming quarter. Xbox content and services, aka software, Game Pass, and basically everything that isn't hardware, rose $739 million or 34%, which Microsoft attributes to, well, obviously everything in that category. But first and third-party software and, of course, Game Pass revenue, which has been crushing it for them lately. Baked into that content and services revenue is, of course, Bethesda and ZeniMax. They officially completed that acquisition in March, meaning the company's revenue for the final 3 weeks was lumped into everything else. So a nice little addition that, of course, they paid handsomely for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good job. So I found out as of January 26th of this year, Xbox had 100 million monthly active users on Xbox Live. It's a lot of people.
So they're pretty... Wait, so on Xbox Live or Xbox Live Gold?
It just says Xbox Live. So they maybe...
so that's the free membership that anybody can have, right? And
Yeah.
PlayStation was specifically Plus?
Yeah,
They were
PlayStation specifically Plus.
Okay, so interesting to note. I would have to imagine that, like, PlayStation users at large has got to be... Like,
it's a lot.
it's got to match, whatever their console install
Yeah.
base is for
I'll see
both
if I can find
PS3
something.
and PS4. Obviously, there's some overlap there. of
Give
course,
us your
but-
numbers.
Yes.
Give us your numbers.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that is a lot of people. It's a lot of people.
I mean, a lot of fucking people.
I wonder
Nothing to
how
sneeze
many of
at.
those Xbox Live users are on either on Xbox 360 or on PC.
360. Oh.
Oh, baby boy,
They're out there.
360, baby. They are.
That's my
miss
mom
you.
and all of her friends. They're playing Xbox Live on their 360s still.
I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, a surprising amount of people, came out of the woodwork in our comments and stuff when we were talking about the PlayStation Store closing for PS3 and Vita to be like, I'm still actively playing on my PS3. And I was like, but why?
It's a market.
It is. It absolutely is.
Okay, so it looks like
Okay.
Xbox Live Gold, nearly 90 million monthly active users, according to Frank Shaw, lead communications for Microsoft, as of last year. So
Impressive.
Numbers are hard, friends. Who knows? Everyone's being shady with their fucking numbers. We just want to cover your shit accurately. Come on, friends.
I mean, they don't want to. They don't want
Sorry,
to give away
well,
all their
first-
cards. They gotta hold some of them
Hormones.
tight.
It's true. Yeah, and Xbox in particular was very cards close to their chest for a long time about their numbers because, you know, Phil Spencer made a big statement last year. Well, not last year, sorry, a couple years back, mid-cycle of the Xbox One, being like, it's not about the numbers for us.
Which means our numbers aren't as good as PlayStation, and we don't want you to compare them.
Right.
That's how that translates, in
That's
case you were
definitely
wondering.
what that meant. But also, it was his way of saying Microsoft has so much more money than Sony. It really doesn't matter if our numbers aren't as big as yours because we still make way more money than you do.
It's just like, it's the subs we made along the way. That's all they want you to worry about.
100%. But like I said with the last story, this is good news for everybody. Congrats to both Xbox and PlayStation for
Golf claps all around.
fantastic offerings for both people in both camps. You know, I know console wars are still raging on the interwebs, but we're big fans of both platforms here at WGG.
Could tell you one thing we're probably not a fan of.
Brittany, this story is all you, girl.
This is all me. Yeah. So I was like, okay, we have the PlayStation Store. We have the Xbox Store. We can't leave our little friends Nintendo out in the cold. We need to include them. And yes, like the reviews for Pokemon Snap are out, but like this is more fun. So a golden Wii designed for Queen Elizabeth is up for sale. And this comes from IGN. So a golden Nintendo Wii created for the Queen of the UK, Elizabeth II. Second. It's currently
I love Elizabeth too.
Elizabeth. Okay, so let's say the Queen of UK, Elizabeth the sequel, is currently for sale on eBay for the sum of $300,000.
Amazing.
The luxurious console's current owner, a Dutch video game collector called Donnie, has put the sequel's Wii up for
Donnie.
sale because he is moving on with life. So talking to consolevariations.com, Donnie said, quote, "The reason why I am selling it is simple. Moving on with life. I've been in one place my whole life. It's time to get my own place. At times it has been difficult for me to have free time or relax. Lately it's all CV and my daily job. When I come home, I don't get to spend a lot of me time, so I'd like to take the step and move on." The $300,000 asking price has been set as a reasonable amount of money with Donnie, because then he'd be able to buy a new home for himself and realize the ambition of moving on with life. If you're unaware of the legend of the Queen's Golden Wii, the sequel's Golden Wii, it was created as a part of a PR stunt by THQ for the Wii game Big Family Games, a mini-game compilation. So the idea was to send a unique console to the biggest family of them all, or the royal family. Okay, yeah. So I was like, what the fuck is this? I don't remember this story. I don't know if any of you do.
This being made at all.
I
but
don't
this definitely
either.
sounds like a THQ thing.
But I also love that this like random dude named Donnie has it, and I want to know how much he paid for it.
How did
Because I'm
Donnie
like,
get it? Yeah.
How did Donnie get this? And not only that, Donnie's like, I need to move on with my life. I have this thing worth apparently $300,000 in my house.
So obviously there's the Big Family Games, which was a THQ compilation game, a bunch of mini games. And there was a tabloid report that went out around 2009 that the Queen loved Wii bowling. And so THQ was like, all right, like we'll send her Big Family Games, but we can't just send her Big Family Games. We have to send her a gold-plated Wii. So they sent it to
actually
Buckingham.
Gold-plated?
It's actually gold. Yes.
Wow.
Okay, that would make it worth money.
Does it say what kind of
Like
gold?
what carat?
I don't know. I'm looking at an article and I don't see it.
Okay.
But what happened
I'll
is
look it up.
Buckingham Palace rejected it because
They're like, we can't verify who sent this
rejected
package.
They're like, there's spy chips in it. We can't do it.
we can't do it. And they rejected it. So it got sent back to THQ. And then I think about 3 or so years passed. And then eventually THQ shut down. And then this golden Wii ended up in the hands of someone else. And then somehow Donnie got it. But,
Dear Donnie.
Dear Donnie.
Dear Donnie, how did you get this golden Wii?
Wow.
I know. Oh, man. So it sounds like he made a deal on this item in 2017. So I don't know. Somehow he got his hands on it. And now if you want a gold-plated Wii, friends, you can get it on eBay for $300,000.
Wow.
So
This is
really,
fantastic.
This is not the Queen's golden Wii. This is just a golden Wii that was.
It's a golden Wii that was in an attempt.
the golden
it was
Wii.
offered to the Queen and she rejected.
Steimer, henceforth, we call her the sequel. She's
The
not
sequel.
This is
The
canon.
sequel said, "Nay, I do not trust golden wheeze from strangers."
And so now she's probably playing on some bummy old Wii like the rest of us. But, whatever.
I mean,
Her loss.
the queen could also just afford to get someone to bedazzle her own Wii with jewels from her royal vault. Like, if
Oh,
she
man,
really
those are
wanted
so
to,
Yeah,
she got it. She got a lot of money. She got a lot of fancy things.
that's true.
Yep. So there you go.
I wonder if she still plays the Wii. I wonder what her life must be like.
I mean, she's like that perfect age for some nice like Wii tennis sessions. I mean, why not?
I mean,
Get the
Sitting
blood
there.
moving, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Get some exercise.
Go on with your bad self, sequel.
Gosh, she's
Sequel?
she's really old.
She is really old.
She is.
I know.
How
Her
old is she?
husband, her husband just died,
She's
and it was
in
like
her 90s, right?
100 almost. He was 99.
Yeah.
I literally just typed in how old is the sequel. Oh my god. She is 95 years old.
Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, good for you. Go get that Wii bowling.
Going
something.
strong. All right.
There you go. Most important
in
story
limbo.
you'll hear all week.
Queen Elizabeth too.
The two.
Love it. Love it. Okay, let's move on to our next story. But before we do that, I want to let you know that this episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by filmmaker, author, and fan of the show. Thanks for the support, Shaz Mohsen. So Shaz has recently published a sci-fi illustrated novella about the relationship between two South Asian women titled A Jar of Ashes, which is available now on Apple Books and Amazon Kindle. A Jar of Ashes is book 1 in his sci-fi series titled The Story of Neela, which tells an intimate story about the protagonist, Neela, her role aboard the Andromeda-based space station, Moksha 72, thought I was going to say that wrong, and her relationship with its commander, Amaris Nazim. Taking inspiration from shows like Star Trek, video games like Mass Effect, and his roots as a South Asian from Bangladesh, Shaz looks to tell an ongoing story about identity, cultural history, and the connections we have with our roots, while exploring the LGBTQ+ relationships told through the eyes of people of color. With enough support, Shaz, alongside artist Emily Lamson, hope to have the story of Neela span across multiple books in the years to come. You can support their journey today by getting a copy of A Jar of Ashes on Apple Books or Amazon Kindle. You can visit the link to his website in the description below. Of course, we know we got you guys hooked up in the show notes. Or, of course, you can go directly to www.shazmohsin.com. That's SHAZMOHSIN.com. Again, don't forget, A Jar of Ashes is available now on Apple Books and Amazon Kindle, and you can help support Shaz's story by picking up a copy of his book today. You tell me it's like Mass Effect, and you got me hooked. And I've been
it sounds
reading the
dope.
first couple pages, and I'm really into it so far. All right. First story of the second block of news. Can we officially call this the B block? Maybe?
The B block?
Yeah.
The sequel block.
I like it.
Yeah. That's a real news term, ladies and gentlemen.
Today I learned.
I like this story. I'm a fan of this one.
I pulled it just for you.
Would you like to read it?
Sure. Okay, here we go. Try to calm my excitement.
No, let it out, girl. Let it pour through your pores.
All right, this write-up comes from IGN, and it is titled Apex Legends Legacy Update, Valkyrie Abilities, Arenas Mode, and more. Okay, this is a lot. Deep breath, everyone. Okay.
Okay.
Apex Legends Season 9, otherwise known as Legacy, is its biggest update yet. Apex usually introduces a new legend, a new weapon, and sometimes map changes in an update, but in Legacy, we're getting all of these and a permanent new game mode called Arenas. Okay, so Arenas. Arenas is a permanent 3v3 mode where the first team to win 3 rounds and win the match point will be the victor. So its format's completely different from Apex Battle Royale. 2 teams of 3 are pitted against each other, and the objective is to eliminate the other team. If you're downed in this mode, you can be revived, but you cannot be respawned back if you fully die. who are brought back in the next round once everybody's dead. The maps in the arena are actually smaller and contain 2 new custom maps called Party Crasher and Phase Runner. And arena maps also include 3 existing Battle Royale map locations. That's Thermal Station from World's Edge, Golden Gardens from Olympus, and Artillery from Kings Canyon. So in the start of arenas, you pick your legend as usual, but before every round, there's a buy phase. If you're a fan of Valorant, you know exactly what this looks like. You choose your guns, your equipment, your ability charges. Think, again, Valorant, Counter-Strike, Rogue Company, and unlike the Battle Royale mode, your abilities and ultimate do not recharge over time. You actually have to buy charges for them and choose when you use your abilities and ultimate. And within the buy phase, you can upgrade your weapons and customize your gun attachments if you desire, if you have enough materials to spend. And the better you do in the previous matches, the more materials you get in following matches. So it's definitely different than the Battle Royale. And I've had some hands-on time with it, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the show. For other updates, we have a new legend that's Valkyrie. And Valkyrie, aka Kairi Imahara, is the latest legend. She's the daughter of Viper, who was a Titan pilot from Titanfall 2, who was also a member of Blisk's Apex Predators mercenary group. And Valkyrie enters the Apex games with an altered North Star Titan kit. So no, we did not actually get Titans right now, but she does have a jetpack, and that grants her more horizontal and vertical movement. And she has more than one passive. So hold on a second. She has a VTOL jet, which allows her to double jump in the air and maneuver while she's flying. She cannot shoot while she's flying, but she can get pretty mobile. She also has the typical recon character abilities where she can scan for the next circle in the Battle Royale mode. And then also she has the ability to scan where enemies are within her direct line of sight while she's deploying or redeploying, which is part of her ultimate. So it is a lot. Valkyrie does many, many things, and I will get into more details, but it is a really exciting update. So just very, very hyped on Apex right now. Arenas is going to change the game. Valkyrie is OP. She'll probably get nerfed, but let's enjoy her while we can. So.
That's usually how it goes, right? In these
Usually
games.
how it goes. Yes.
And then the article did continue to go on into the new weapons, some map changes, and legend patches, but I didn't know.
There's a bow. We get a bow.
Tell us about the bow.
Bow check bow. Okay, so it's a bow. It's really exciting. If you're playing as Bloodhound and you shoot somebody and they're running away, you can see the trail of their blood, which is so adorable.
I love that you're like, so adorable.
And you don't play Resident Evil Y, Ree? I feel like you would love it.
If there was
She
more
likes to
daytime
inflict the
themes.
murder. She doesn't want to be murdered.
Okay.
There it
fair.
is.
That's
That's
a fair
exactly it,
argument.
Steimer.
Okay, fair.
100%. But yeah, bow is sweet. It has 2 hop-ups. You can add a tempo, which lets you shoot faster if you have really good aim and good speed. And then you can also put a scatter shot on it, which will cause it to shoot a little bit more like a shotgun, and it gives you more firepower at close range. But yes, the bow is really, really good. It's really hard to use. It's similar to the 30-30 repeater, which is also getting some adjustments to its hop-ups. And what's really cool about the bow is, yes, the arrows are a little bit more scarce than other ammo types in the map. However, once you shoot an arrow, you can go retrieve it. So if it ends up in an enemy and they die, you could go pick it up from their death box. But if it ends up in the wall and you effed up, you missed your shot, you just run past it and it gets added to your inventory.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice,
good
nice,
stuff
nice.
with the bow.
I don't understand half of what you said, but I want you to know I am very excited for you, and I love your passion.
Thanks. I'm just a fan of games and Apex in general.
No,
Those
I
are
know.
sweet.
I know. It's like when I get the blank stares when I talk about Resident Evil and all that. But no, you're obviously very excited about this, and that's wonderful.
Oh yeah, Arenas is big deal. Very excited.
It's really cool that Respawn has taken this clearly, juggernaut of a game that Apex has turned into and said, hey, we want to keep innovating and evolving, when they could have just made another Battle Royale map, right? Or just continued to make more legends. And instead they're like, no, let's dip our toes into the arena waters and see if we can also kind of compete there. I think that's great. I think it'll help set them up, hopefully, for some long tail dominance maybe moving into esports, because right now there's not like a lot of competitive Apex happening. There's obviously some tournaments, but I mean, if they can get this 3v3 mode cooking, they could maybe give Valorant a run for their money.
Challenge.
I don't know. I haven't played Valorant in a long time. I just know all the cool kids are still playing. I just get my ass kicked every time I attempt to play Valorant. So I'm like, you know what? You bring Valorant to consoles and let me play only with other console noobs, and then maybe we can talk.
We have a fighting chance.
Playing on PC is hard.
Too many buttons.
I just can't run and aim at the same time with buttons on the keyboard.
Oh dear.
Steimer, teach me the ways of how to play on PC.
I mean, I think at least the mouse aspect is infinitely easier than a console. Like for the you just click heads. but yeah, I get it. If you're the Wasset thing is.
For me, it's whenever I get in a situation where I'm under duress and I'm pressured and I need to like strafe or run away or jump or whatever, and they're all like different buttons, and like my fingers are just not used to that muscle memory of how to get out of those situations. And I know my fingers are capable because I was a literal champion at Guitar Hero and Rock Band, so I'm able to like move them in really weird positions. It's just about the
muscle memory,
the practice of doing it over and over again. Yeah.
I have stupid hands. They don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Your hands aren't stupid. They're just not well trained.
There you go.
Exactly.
What was that game we played at PAX East? It was that horror game. And it was
wasn't
on
it
PC.
called GTFO?
GTFO.
Yes, GTFO.
Oh, that was stressful. I kept accidentally shooting y'all. I didn't mean to. Like it was
the friendly fire in that game was brutal.
It was. It was pretty harsh.
That was the last time we all tried to play a PC game together, friends. And it probably will never happen again.
I don't remember this game at all.
You don't? So it's a game that kind of has some Left 4 Dead vibes. It's a survival horror shooter where you are a crew of 4 and you get sent into the subterranean like lab to go collect evidence, but there's all of these like monsters. I don't want to call them zombies because they're not zombies. These monsters that are down there.
Remember.
And it's wave based, and like you have to unlock these puzzles.
I played with you guys?
I don't think you did. I think it was
okay.
I think it was a dev who was with us, not you, Steimer.
Okay. I was like,
okay.
I look, my memory's shit, but I just don't. I do not remember this happening. Okay.
Yeah, and it was stressful because we didn't know at first that there's friendly fire in that game, and that game is like really, really hard without friendly fire. But with friendly fire, it's even
friendly
more
fire
difficult.
seems mean.
Yeah. I wish they would have just made it a modifier that you can
toggle.
turn on if you're, like a masochist. And you're like, I want to kill my
Let me shoot through you to get to the monsters.
Yeah.
That's my strategy.
But instead we're playing this PAX demo with all of these people watching us and so many
yeah.
members of the dev team just like standing over our shoulders, and I'm like so embarrassed.
I know. And it was the kind of demo station that had a big TV at the very top so people who were walking by could see what you were doing on your screen.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure
was
we
the best
did
part.
No pressure. No pressure.
No favors that day. Sorry.
Nope. It was no bueno. But that game seems to be doing pretty well. There's definitely a subculture of people who just love brutally difficult games who are like, give me the challenge. I want to hurt. I'm like, I don't understand, but I'm glad. I'm happy for you. All right, moving on into our next story. Because Bree is going to talk more about her time playing Apex in our hands-on segment. The ESA, the folks who put on E3 every year, have announced some fun hosts for their digital event. And while this isn't like a big news story that we would normally cover, friend of the show, Kind of Funny's Greg Miller is hosting alongside formerly of IGN, Jackie Jing, who you guys may have seen covering some of their entertainment stuff. And of course, esports' golden child, golden boy, Alex Mendez is joining those two as well. So congrats to all three of those.
One of our late G4 host announcements.
Yes, that's right. He is now part of the G4 crew over there. So he's been streaming, I see, with Sessler over at twitch.tv/G4TV if you guys want to check him out. And you guys know where to find that Miller guy.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, kind of funny. They have like 15,000 shows these days. can't keep them all straight. But that content, of course, is going to be 4 days of digital events kicking off on June 12th through June 15th. As we have said before, it is in our best intentions to do live watch-alongs with y'all. But, we've got these ticking time bombs inside of our stomachs that have their own agendas.
Just scratching to be let out.
Oh, like, damn it, Reed.
Soon.
Friends, before the show went live, we had one of those conversations that maybe will see the light of day, but maybe it'll show up in an anniversary stream at some point. But let's just say it involved children scratching your insides. And that was a little reference that Reed was just kind of like throwing it back to, giving me a nice little nod. It reminded me of the daily pain I'm in. Love you, boo.
It's all for the greater good of furthering the human race.
Huzzah.
Shout out to every woman who has ever carried a child. The pain of which Brittany speaks. Okay, moving on to our last major story of the week. And this is, I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's a doozy. But we couldn't not comment on it. And now normally, What's Good Games is not about esports coverage. It's not our beat. It's not our expertise. But when something as big as this comes along, we just have to touch on it. So you guys may have seen on social media a little story about an esports certification exam and how a company is charging $400 for it. And apparently a lot of people in the industry are supporting it, but a lot of people on social media are punking it. So PC Gamer has a very lengthy write-up about the Esports Certification Institute. So if you want to read the entire story, get all of the details, I will point you to pcgamer.com. And of course, you can get in-depth details on all of the esports sites as well. So the Esports Certification Institute, or ECI, appeared this week with an offer. Pay the discounted price of $299.95, normally $399.95, to take an exam. If you pass said exam, you'll earn a certification that tells employers in the esports industry that you understand esports and you grasp basic business terms, marketing concepts, and statistical problems. What? The ECI says that getting certified can help you get noticed and find your esports dream job. The certification has support from a number of esports organizations, CEOs, and professionals, though many other observers aren't convinced that a $400 certification exam is something entry-level job applicants need on their resumes. From the co-CEO, Beast Coast, Brian Anderson wrote on Twitter, "This makes no sense. What could possibly be on this exam where I, as an org CEO, would feel like someone who passes it would be exceptionally more qualified than someone else?" That is a great question, Brian. Others expressed the view that the ECI and its exam are fundamentally unfair and, in fact, harmful. From Team Liquid's digital producer, Patrick Coyne, hoping this gets memed on for a minute and then rightfully disappears into obscurity. Happy to see a lot of industry professionals speaking out against this shameless and predatory cash grab. But ECI co-founder Ryan Friedman fought back, and he, by the way, previously worked at esports organizations such as Dignitas, Clutch, and Immortals, and says his goal isn't to create a barrier to working in esports, but instead to remove barriers, including financial barriers.
I love removing barriers by adding barriers. It's my favorite thing to do.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's logical.
You gotta spend money to make money, Steimer. Avi.
Hustle.
He says that he got into the esports business through luck and unpaid internships, which isn't fair. He said, quote, "People ought to be paid to work." I think we all can agree with that. In Friedman's view, however, a certification exam will get qualified entry-level job applicants the attention they deserve among a huge number of other applicants, even if they don't have professional experience and can't afford to spend months or years interning. Quote, "Even today, many esports companies do not have the infrastructure nor executive will to support in-depth HR processes to vet thousands of applicants. As a result, the space tends to overvalue previous experience." Now, I'm going to stop there because I think that's really the crux of the problem here, is that he's openly admitting that esports orgs are intentionally not investing in human resources infrastructure in their organizations and to bypass HR, which is very necessary, especially in video games. They're like, how about instead people who are applying pay to get a certification, and that way you don't have to worry about having HR. You can just look at your applicants and see who's got this certification and then weed out everybody else. Now, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but like that's what I got from that message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not the correct way of going about this problem.
This is just so cuckoo bananas to me, this quote one Alexa Ray Korea. I mean, we all know how this industry works, friends. Your online portfolio, your social channels, your YouTube content, that is your certificate. Like, that's what people are going to look at when they're trying to vouch whether or not you're a good fit for something. They're going to look at what you've created, how much you've hustled. When you chat and you talk about this thing, do you sound like you know what you're talking about, or are you just talking out of your ass? That's what this is. To say, like, it kind of reminds me of like, pay $400 to get a license to prove that you're a content creator. You know, do you know what it means to get views and clicks? It's like,
do some math for me real quick.
And the screenshots of the questions from this exam.
Oh, did you see some?
Yes. We're filtering on the internet.
Oh, I want to read the one.
Steimer has a favorite one, but like some of them just smack of like ACT math questions.
Yeah, this is 100% like some SAT, ACT bullshit.
Oh boy.
A team has 3 players with a mean salary of $180,000. The team then signs a 4th player, and the mean of the salary of the players is now $200,000. What is the salary of the 4th player? Why the fuck would you ever need to do a problem this way? Spoiler alert, you wouldn't. Even if you're on the finance team, guess what? You already know what you're paying that 4th player because you fucking wrote them the offer. Like, why? You don't need to figure this out. You would never need to figure this out this way.
Also, an entry-level job applicant wouldn't need to have these conversations about salaries at all, because it turns out you're probably not part of those conversations as an entry-level person.
Plus, dear Lord, I hope they're not underwriting the contracts as an entry-level employee.
But
oh my God.
You'd be surprised. It is the Wild West in some of these
But
awards.
not only that, like, if you're trying to be a graphic designer in the space, if you're trying to be in PR, if you're trying to be in literally any other element of an organization that is not league ops, it is a completely irrelevant question to you. It doesn't matter. If I'm if I'm making some really fucking cool pictures, or I'm like really good at branding and brand design, I don't need to know how much you're paying your players. I need to know how much you're paying me.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of it. Unless you want to make me a really awesome infographic of this word problem. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And I do want to
tough.
Yeah,
It's
no,
really
sorry. Go
tough.
ahead, Ree.
I mean, I am not well versed in the world of esports compared to my general gaming knowledge, but in any industry struggle, right? Like, you want to find good people, you want to have a wide net so that you're finding the best talent regardless of their resources, their previous experience, or what they've been able to accomplish on their own, because not everybody has the ability to pay $400 or set up their own stream or even spend time broadcasting and building a portfolio. So it's important to have an inroad for talent that is not dependent upon already having access. But this just ain't it. Like, it's not the right answer. It's definitely something that needs to be examined from the esports industry as a whole. HR is probably a better bet. Spending money on actually scouting talent is probably a better way forward. But I mean, I'm encouraged that somebody's looking for an answer. I hate the fact that they're trying to charge it to everybody who's trying to get in. Like, that's just not the way to bring in more talent. That's not the way to make things accessible. That's not the way to move forward as an industry as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing I was even talking with Andrea about before the show, I was like, it would be even different if this $400 was you get like a crash course or something, right? Like, you're being taught along the way. Here are some of the key elements of esports and whatnot. And then at the end, you get, you pass whatever idiotic test. And then you get your certification. So it's adding value to you in some way.
Yes.
This is
and it's an
not
investment in the
adding value to
person.
you. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is not adding value. This is literally just jump over this hurdle, but pay me first. And then theoretically, someone on the other side will look at this and think that you are somehow more qualified than XYZ person.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to make a note that the ECI, having gotten a wave of very similar criticisms to what we're discussing right now, did publicly come out to say that they want to offer financial support to those that want to take the exam but can't afford it. And they also are going to work with the esports organizations to offer scholarships, which applicants would need to apply for with the org that they're interested in working with first, and then bring that scholarship back to the ECI.
It just seems like so much unnecessary legwork for an unnecessary exam.
Yeah, and I think something you were saying, Simon, makes a lot more sense too, is even if you do grasp these basic terms, marketing concepts, and statistical problems, like, but by you reading that math question, it's like, okay, well, sure, you know what that is, but just because everyone knows how to do addition doesn't mean they're qualified to be in esports.
Right.
And that's kind of the thing, like, where I'm with you. Like, I think if it was a crash course, if it's like, okay, so these are the teams, this is blah, 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 these are the main organizations, these are the games you should know in and out, I think that could help out and speak a little bit more to the qualifications of a person. Like, because it's not just about what you know, it's how you carry yourself, it's how you present yourself, it's how you are on camera, assuming you want to host. It's, this just, like Reese said, this ain't it. But like you said, at least they're trying something, but this ain't it.
Yeah, it's just bad. And so further down in the PC Gamer article, they say that the ECI has pointed out that they have an exam study guide available on a pay-for-what-you-want basis, and that the $400 exam fee is actually low compared to other industry certification exams, such as the
like what
Certified Public Accountant exam.
Things that it's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the CPA exam is part of the process of becoming a licensed CPA to practice public accountancy in a U.S. jurisdiction. And as I was telling Steimer before the show, I was like, if your CPA screws up their job and you don't pay the right amount of taxes because of it, you could go to jail. So there should be a certification exam for that. Don't think esports is in the same category.
Yeah, same reason why like you have lawyers pass the bar exam. Like, there are certain professions where you need to prove your competency in a specific area. This is way too generalized, is honestly what it is, because there are so many jobs within esports. Like, there is no way you could have an exam that would somehow check all the boxes for all of these different areas. It just doesn't really make any sense that this is the route they're trying to go down.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, agree that the problems that they're mentioning are problems. They are problems indeed in the industry, as they are with a lot of young industries. But as to quote Ree about 10 minutes ago, this ain't it.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see if this becomes a standard thing and these esports orgs like push their certification process through. And
I mean, I hope not. I really do think that the organizations need to be investing more in their fundamentals, in not only in HR, but even in their intern program. So yeah, like, you're allowed to have an intern. That's fine. But like, make sure that you are adding value to those people and you are not taking advantage of them. And so, like, if you find somebody that is doing really well, figure out a way to move them into your organization full time. But obviously what they're talking about is a lot of predatory practices where people will just cycle through interns for essentially free work. Especially with a lot of the younger organizations. It's like, yeah, we're keeping costs low. You're like, oh God, like, it's just not sustainable and it's not good.
To me, this smacks of cutting corners. You think about the entertainment industry at large, of which esports is part of that umbrella, right? When you think about television, movies, music, video games, underneath that same umbrella, of which esports is underneath the sub-umbrella of video games, right? There isn't a certification process for becoming a feature film intern, for becoming a radio intern or a television intern, because those companies have established systems in place to properly vet the thousands of applicants that they get as well. And esports organizations have money to do that as well. It just sounds to me like they want to take a shortcut by having a certification process and passing that cost onto the people who are applying, to say, I don't want to have to weed through these applicants, so I'm going to make sure that I can see who's got this certification and who paid for it. the whole thing just sounds like a terrible idea, and like the idea that somebody was like, "This is gonna be great," was like, "No, Bob,
No,
no,
no, no, thank you.
Somebody should have popped up and been like, this is going to systemically oppress people from the process. Like, maybe we shouldn't do it.
Yep.
Right? Well, people have definitely been saying that on Twitter. PC Gamer pointed out one esports-focused graphic designer named Owen Rowe, who said that while diversity and inclusion is at the top of the ECI's mission statement, quote, "You claim to be enabling a more meritocratic? It's a word that I haven't seen in a while. System, while in the same breath outlining your plan to create needless institutionalized gatekeeping."
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So reconsider ECI. Maybe you just disband. I don't think there's anything wrong with creating a course, an educational course, and charging for that. That's perfectly legitimate.
That sounds awesome.
You have a giant board of people who clearly have experience across a variety of different organizations within esports. And if they want to have classes that you then charge for to help teach people about, you know,
with
these
maybe
things.
gasp specializations of different types of jobs instead of just a blanket exam.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many different things you could be and work in esports. There are so many different jobs.
Yeah, I just think that they framed this completely terrible, and then like the questions that have been
Questions are a hoot.
screenshotted and floating around are just bad, just bad. Oh boy.
Try again. Do better next time.
Exactly. Britt, we have
Whoa.
one bullet point
Whoa.
under in case you missed it.
And it looks like she's she's part of the Resident Evil horror show.
What?
Hello,
What?
you may call me Lady Dimitrescu.
Oh,
you can see my mouth.
This looks like one of those magic eye paintings.
It does.
Look at my teeth.
Just cross your eyes and then maybe she'll appear.
For everybody listening
Whoa.
on podcasts, something happened with the video compression that we're using, and Brittany is just a wall of pixels.
Something has gone terribly wrong. Or terribly right.
or terribly right.
I think it's
just
kinda
keep
perfect.
let's keep it rolling. Oh, there you
Okay,
are.
she's back.
Oh man,
You're back.
Dang.
Just in time to
Anyway.
read this story.
I know. Okay. It's a little mini Brit Resident Evil corner again, and it's all about Resident Evil Village. Who would have thought? So the Resident Evil Village demo has been extended. So previously it was going to just be from May 1st to May 2nd from 5 p.m. to 5 p.m. on the West Coast. But Capcom was like, yeah, you're right. Maybe this is a really dumb idea. So they've extended it by a week. So now you have from May 1st until May 9th to play it, which is this weekend, friends.
Nice.
And it's this.
Hey.
Yes. Hey, it's the 60-minute demo, so you can spend your time however you want. You can spend it in a castle or you can spend it in the village. My little pro tip would be I ran out of time in the village, but I finished the castle portion of the demo with like 12 minutes to spare. So I would get all of your wild things out in the village and then hop into the demo. Hop into the castle. Hop into the castle. And maybe you can see Miss
Man
Lady
thing.
Amy. Oh my God. I love her so much.
And I also saw that Resident Evil Reverse has been delayed to summer 2021, and it will no longer ship with Village.
Yeah, that's the other part of the little sad Brit corner this week. Wah, wah. This is kind of like the comic booky / cell shady aesthetic multiplayer game. People are kind of like, hot and cold on it. Some people love it. Some people think it was like a silly addition, but it is what it is. But yeah, no reason was given, but there were just a bunch of betas or alphas, one or the other. One or the other. And they didn't go so hot in terms of server stability and whatnot. So my guess is that Capcom was like, all right, let's just push this. This isn't really what people are like champing at the bit for anyway.
Nice. Yeah. If it's not ready, it's not ready. That's why you do those test runs to say, hey, is this ready? And then if the test goes bad,
It's like when you
we need to tweak a couple
stick
things.
a fork
under
in
the
that
hood
loaf
first.
of bread. Is this done? Is it coming out clear?
Stick a fork in a loaf of bread.
It's just wet in the
Exactly.
middle still.
And you're like, oh no,
There
gotta
you
put
go.
this back in the oven.
Put it back
Yep.
in.
There you go.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our news for this week. When we come back, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. Stick with us. We'll see you in a minute. everybody. It is the second segment of the What's Good Games podcast, where we talk about what we've been playing, what we've been watching, and any preview events that we may have been to. Brittany, unfortunately, can't talk about what she's been playing. Wah, wah, wah. But next week you can.
Aha.
It's going to be great. You know, you guys could use your imagination on what you think Brittany is playing.
It's the rhinoceros love stories.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting.
It was based on the noise
Page
Brittany
turner.
just made.
Yeah.
Rhino love.
It's like Hatoful Boyfriend, but with rhinoceroses.
But a bunch of horny rhinoceroses. Rhinoceri.
Rhinoceros?
Rhinoceri.
Rhinoceros?
What's the plural of rhinoceros?
We're about to find out.
Dear, to the Google machine.
It is rhinoceros or rhinoceri. Oh, I actually got that one
Rhinoceri.
right.
Oh, there you go.
Pull that one out of my ass.
Look at you.
Right.
Look how smart you are.
Today I
Thanks.
learned rhinoceri. So if you
Love
guys
it.
joined us for the happy hour patron Q&A, you know that Steimer and I talked a little bit about Animal Crossing, and I asked her to bring her Switch over to my house.
Yes.
And she did.
I did.
And thank you again to Stream with Luck for sending the Sanrio Amiibo card packs. And so we opened up Steimer's Animal Crossing Island.
It wasn't as bad as I thought.
It wasn't. You shook out your
Oh.
bed head. I helped you clean up the cockroaches that were inside your house.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
I
God.
recognized that Steimer hasn't upgraded her house. I was like, wait, there's only...
I was poor.
I was like, there's only one other room in this house.
She's like, what do you mean you have one room? And I was like, yeah, I have
She still
one
had
room.
a cot. I was like, oh no, you have a cot. You don't even have a real girl bed.
I have nothing in my house. My house is an assortment of junk that the game has just randomly given to me, so I just throw it on the floor. That's
we were
my
all
house.
there. Those early days of Animal Crossing where you're like, cool, I got one new thing. This is excellent.
Put this
So-
pot of flowers in the corner, I guess. I don't really know what to do with it.
But
There's bugs everywhere.
Yeah, well, there wasn't that many. There was only like 4 because, again, there was not very much furniture and there was only 2 rooms. when I time traveled to collect this one bug that was eluding me, I had to pick up almost all of my furniture across every single room. My mermaid suite, my cutesy fruitsy room. I had to pick up all of it because those little fuckers hide underneath your furniture.
Oh my
and
God, it's like real life.
Yes, it was the
Wow.
worst. And they kept coming back for like 2 or 3 days. I wasn't getting that notification like, yay, I got all the bugs out of my house. And I was like, you motherfuckers. So I had to like
Get out.
pick all of my furniture up. It was very annoying. Anywho, back to Steimer's Island. So it was kind of fun because I haven't been on an island that was
So disheveled.
so open and clean. The possibilities are endless.
There's literally nothing. Like she was like, "Why do you have these 2 buildings so close together?" And I was like, "Because of the way the fucking trees were. I just like didn't have any space anywhere else, and I didn't know what to do, so I just put it there, and I hate it." And she was like, "I hate it too," and I was like, "I know it's not good. It's not." Oh my god! Oh my god, Brittany! Brittany looks like a nightmare machine right now. Oh my god!
Why?
Oh dear lord!
What programs do you have running in the background
Brittany,
on your PC that are
This is
causing
why
you
your
to-
child is gonna come out making the grudge noise.
Look, what is happening to my eyebrow?
It's like this
Okay.
weird pixelation effect. I don't know what's going on.
Jump scares on What's Good Games. Oh my
My
god.
goodness.
I couldn't help it. Anyway.
So it was exciting for me as somebody who's been, my island is like filled to the brim with stuff. Corner to corner, there's stuff everywhere. And we had these cards. So for people who aren't familiar with the way the amiibo cards work, there's a whole bunch of different amiibo cards that you can use to bring villagers to your island. And Steimer's like, I hate all these villagers. And to her credit, she has some pretty shitty villagers.
Yes, I do.
And I was like, we could kick them all out with these amiibo cards. It's going to be great. So I brought over a small loan. Just as I was gifted 1,000,000 bells, I gifted Steimer 1,000,000 bells to buy bridges and to upgrade her house.
Wow.
And we kind of came up with some ideas about where to move resident services because Not resident services.
Oh,
sorry,
no.
It was the
Nook's Cranny.
Nook's Cranny.
So Nook's Cranny was like
It was right on top of the museum.
There was like this tiny little sliver of grass between them, like, but in
I
the
had too many
back.
trees.
They weren't even
See?
side by side. It was like they were behind each other, and I was like, why?
Oh my
Why are
God.
these two giant buildings so close together? How did the game let you do this?
I don't know.
It's giving me anxiety.
We moved
but-
it though.
We're gonna move all the villager houses into like their own little neighborhood, and
But then we were also foiled by Nintendo Online.
I
Oh,
forgot
no.
about this. Yeah, so because we
Oh,
were
no.
playing side by side on the couch, we were gonna play. I was like, well, let's just do local. It's easier, but we hadn't become best friends in Animal Crossing yet, so I had dig privileges. Because in order to do that, you have to visit someone's island first, and then you have to send them a best friend request in the game. But we also learned that you can't send people friend requests in Animal Crossing if you aren't a Nintendo Online subscriber, which I did not realize.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So like when I would go to be like send Andrea a best friend request, it was like, nay,
You have to sign up for
give me money first.
paywall.
You have to pay for friendship.
Yeah, pay for friendship. And I was like, fine. And so like I went through and tried to pay for it on the business credit card, and then that didn't work.
They
and
wouldn't
then
let me change the name on
and-
the card, and it was this whole fiasco.
and then I had already
bummer.
unhooked my other. I was trying to. It was really bad. Like I just kept trying these different things. It was not working. I was like, screw this. We're not going to be best friends today.
No dig privileges as of yet. So I just brought over a bunch of items and just kind of dropped them on the ground, and we moved some people around. And I'm excited though. It was like while we were playing and doing this, John came up with a really fun idea for a show. He was like, because of all the HGTV that you watch, you should just do like an HGTV styled Animal Crossing show where you just like
Yes.
redecorate and redesign people's islands. And I was like,
Yes.
Oh, I was like,
Yes.
I'm very excited. Yes. Do
100%.
But it would be so difficult to accomplish from a production standpoint. Like the producer in me is like, okay, so either somebody needs to give me their Switch so I can move all this around, or I have to coach them through it step by step, which seems really tedious.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. If I lived closer, I would be your first, and I'd be like, take my Switch and give it back to
Yes.
me in like a week, and like it'll be like that. Oh, what's that show? Or the home makeover show where they pull the truck away at the end.
The bus.
Extreme
Oh,
Makeover
gotcha.
Home
Home Makeover.
Edition. Dang it,
Yeah,
Brittany.
that.
Extreme home
We might have to have you
pixelation.
disconnect and then reconnect. This is
No, it's fun. I don't mind it.
this is fun that she's all pixels.
It's fun because it keeps moving, so it's like it's dancing. It's dancing pixels on top of Brittany.
Anyway.
I would do that. I would absolutely do that. I mean, it would involve some aggressive time traveling, but I would do it. It'd be fun.
I'd watch it.
So we spent some time doing that, and I finally, people who watch my Animal Crossing streams will know, I finally was able to kick Jacob off my island.
Nice.
Which one was
because of-
Jacob?
He's the trash bird.
Oh yeah, you've complained about
His
him for a
house
while.
is just trash.
He's like a red and green
Garbage.
bird with like two beady eyes, and his house is literally trash. He's got trash bags in it. It's a trash heap. He's
Ew.
a trash bird.
No thanks.
And I've been trying to get rid of him. I've
Clean
been hitting him
your
with my
house.
net. 'Cause apparently, if you hit the villager with your net 3 times, they get sad and they're like, "Why are you doing this to me?"
She took a screenshot of one of my villagers who was like, "Wow, I haven't seen you in a year."
Literally, that's what they said. And she's like, "Yeah, it's been that long since
Yep.
I've logged in."
Wow.
Yep. Been about a year.
Oh,
Oh my
she hadn't even
goodness.
seen the deep sea diving update, the Luna
I
update.
had
Ooh.
seen it because I watched you play it,
Yeah, that's true.
but I just hadn't played it. And yeah, you were like, "Get the Luna bed," and I was like, "I don't know. I have this shitty cot. Is that?"
We got her hooked up with a real bed.
Couldn't find a bed I liked. All of the ones that I had access to, I was like, I don't really like those, so I'm not gonna build them.
Yeah, the good beds are the DIYs that you have to kind of hunt for.
Yeah. See, that was my problem, is I never did any of that. So
Well, I have all of the furniture DIYs unlocked with the exception of one piece that's eluding me. And it's the iron garden bench. Not the regular garden bench, the iron garden bench specifically. And I've looked for it on Nookazon, and these people on Nookazon want an absurd amount of Nook Mile tickets for it, and I just cannot stomach paying for it. Someday, one of the balloons will drop, or one of my villagers won't try to tell me how to make a freaking log stool for the 15th time.
I don't need to know. Thanks, though.
Yeah. They're like, do you want to know how to make this thing that you've known for months? I'm like, Nintendo, how is it not in your RNG algorithm that
To,
you
like,
can
remove
see everything that's in my DIY collection, and you don't, weight the things that aren't in my inventory heavier? Like, I'm okay with them doing repeats because obviously, you want to share them with friends or whatnot. That's fine. But, like, could you weight things that I don't have a little bit more, maybe? That would be nice.
When you put in as many hours as you have into it and as a single player game, yeah, it feels like it would be nice for them to just throw you a bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, those extra customization slots. Whew! I'm loving it. I finally was able to get a path design because the path is this really cool floor design that comes in all kinds of styles, and it's like a whole sub community of people who are creators in Animal Crossing. And I've always wanted one, but they take like 8 to 12 slots in your customization, and when you only got 50, that's just too many. But now I have 100 slots.
Nice.
It's very exciting. Anyway, I'm
Whole
trying
new
not to
world.
get completely back in, but I'm kind of back in.
Do it.
I love this for you.
Thank you.
I feel like Animal Crossing will be a good game to play at 2 a.m. when you're up with your new child.
right? Just
Yeah.
dig some flowers and just chill.
Why don't I just hand my Switch off to you
Do it.
and you can be like late night.
Well, she's got the really cute Animal Crossing Switch too.
I do. My Switch is very adorable.
The cute like green and blue control. I need a new Switch. I don't need a new Switch. What am I saying?
That was why I
Don't need a
literally
new
was like, I
Switch.
struggled with buying that one because I was like, you do not need this. But god damn, it's cute.
It's so cute. I'm trying to hold out until whatever's coming in
Yeah, the
2022.
like, new fancy whatever.
Or
yeah.
later this year if they do another special edition. But
Mm.
anywho, enough about Animal Crossing. I would love to hear before we talk about, because we are going to talk about the Mortal Kombat movie.
Yes.
I wanted to hear about your experience with Apex. So we have a question, Brittany.
We
not?
do, and y'all are full screen right now, so I don't have it up. Admiring my
I
pixel ass
let,
face.
let me read it. It's from Mark S. Osborne Jr. What's
Mm-hmm.
Ree's favorite character in Apex? Mirage and Bangalore have been my favorites from the start, but I'm really into Fuse, even though I can't seem to do a lot with the character. But it's fun to third party with him and just launch a shit ton of grenades from afar.
That does sound fun.
It is very fun. I'm a huge fan of Fuse. I've been maining Fuse lately since the Mayhem update, and yeah, he's great. The fact that Fuse can carry 2 grenades per item slot instead of 1 like every other character is really, really awesome and wonderful for me. Horrible for everybody I'm playing against because I just launched nothing but grenades the whole game. And Fuse's ordnance, where he shoots like a ring of fire down on everybody, it's really useful at the end, towards the end of the circle. If you can get somebody like a Bangalore or even a Jibby to kind of synergize with on your team, it's useful for controlling where people stay and helping you to edge guard if you're trying to, catch people rotating in. That would be my suggestion for Fuse if you're having trouble finding utilization for his ultimate or his tactical, which is essentially just another grenade that stuns everybody. Other mains that I really, really love, my Big Daddy Caustic, because he's huge and very horrible. And he shoots toxic gas at everyone, which is super fun for me as well.
That does
And
not
I
sound
like
fun
the-
for everybody else, though.
No, it's bad for them. But I like control characters, right? I like characters that can force you into a space or out of a space. So with Caustic, what I really love is hiding his gas traps behind rocks, as people are going to go past a certain area, so you can catch them off guard. You can also see an outline of their character whenever they get hit with that gas, and it gives you some additional recon ability, so you know where people are as they're trying to sneak up on you or chase you, rotating into the circle as well. So Caustic is another big favorite. Before that, it was Bloodhound, pretty hardcore. And again, recon, the fact that you can scan and see where people are, regardless of line of sight, is super, super useful. Especially right now when there's so many characters who have different height advantage. So you have Octane, you have Horizon, who is incredibly OP right now. And then you have Valkyrie coming soon, who will all be able to go up in the sky without you really knowing where they are. And it's great to have someone like Bloodhound who can see the outlines of enemies no matter what they're doing, even if they're, again, past cover or out of your line of sight. So Bloodhound is another really big favorite for me. Also, Bloodhound has some really, really cool skins. The Plague Doctor is my favorite. So those are my favorite characters. Apex.
Love
I
it.
love it.
Like
I don't know
Wikipedia.
any of these characters because I don't play Apex, but I am sure that people who do are like, this is all very pertinent information to my strats.
Pro strats. All the
Yes.
pro strats.
But you've been playing a little bit of this new arena mode that we talked about in the news block. So let's hear your candid thoughts on it. What do you think?
Yeah, Arenas is a game changer. I tweeted about it earlier this week, and it sounds, oh my god, it's the new's biggest thing, but it is because it's fucking dope. I mean, there all of the times when you play, and this is very relatable for most battle royales or even most multiplayer games, when you go up against somebody, another team, another player who's an enemy, they take you out, and you're like, I could have got them. I wish I could have replayed that. I wish we could go back 1v1 me, bro. Like, you have that feeling, right?
Mhm.
That if the situation were different or if I got a second chance at it, I could have taken them down. And Arenas gives you that chance. It gives you that moment where your team of 3 versus their team of 3, you could have bested them. It says, okay, well, could you? And gives you the opportunity to try without getting distracted by third parties, without all of the complications of a huge battlefield or having to rotate in to get away from the gas. Yes, there is a ring closing in Arenas mode, but it's such a small map. And I think Emmett Watkins asked if the maps felt too small or big. They feel perfect. They're the right size for the type of encounters you're doing. And even when you have characters like a Bloodhound who can find all of the other players on the map, or Valkyrie who has that one passive that scans anybody who is in direct line of sight and shows them off to their teammates, it still feels like you can sneak up on people. It still feels like you can lose them or shake them if they found you. You can find another vantage point. It's the perfect synergy between like the maneuverability you get and the quick replay you get when you're doing a Call of Duty gameplay mode versus, the battle royale where everything is chaos and everybody's on top of each other at the very end in the battle royale in Apex. And it's everything I have been wanting from Apex, and I'm really, really excited to see what different metas come from it. Something that the devs noted in the preview was that ultimately, yes, your abilities and your synergy with different characters does matter and gives you different options for moving around the map and getting the leg up on your opponents. But the guns are really going to be the most important thing. And Arenas does another really smart thing where they take the randomization out of the equation. It's not based on what you found in a crate, what you're able to drop on. It's literally you pick your loadout. It's like, okay, you thought you could have done that better if you had an R301 instead of an alternator. Prove it. Pick the alternator. Go for it. Did you win? Like, it answers all of those questions for you of that. It's just so good. It's like every time you doubted yourself or doubted the other team's abilities, it really just gives you the chance to fight it out and figure out who really had the best skill. So
Did
very
you
excited.
have any of those redemption moments that you're talking
Yes.
about? Good for you.
Yeah, there was one team that I played. So I was playing with randoms. They suggested for the first few hours, everybody tried to do random matches. So you're not, given an advantage because you have a team that you usually run with. So I played Bloodhound. I also had a Lifeline and a Valkyrie on my team. And the people we were up against were Horizon, Valkyrie, and I think it was another Lifeline. I think it was a Lifeline. So we were playing a few games and they won one, we won one, they won one, we won one. And then there were a couple of stretches where we would get 2 in a row, but then they would get 2 in a row, and then we would get 2 in a row, and then they would get another 2 in a row. And we played 10 rounds.
Holy
And
crap.
it was like the best time because it was like the ultimate test of will and grit and sensibility for this new map that nobody knew yet. And I enjoyed every single minute of it. I cannot wait to get back into arenas.
Ooh.
So, as somebody who isn't familiar with all the legends in the game, but is intrigued by an arena mode, am I going to struggle to jump into this new mode? Should I spends some time just getting whooped in regular Apex to learn the legends, or do you think it's approachable for people who like shooters and like arena games to jump in and just kind of fumble their way through the special abilities of the legends?
Yeah, it's very similar to anybody jumping into the battle royale mode, but I think you have a better chance of actually proving your ability in arenas versus battle royale as a new player who isn't as familiar with all of the different legends abilities. So, as I said before, the tacticals, the ultimates, the passives, they do affect the gameplay. And if there's somebody who can, for instance, jump behind the other team or teleport or scan and see where you all are, yes, they will have an advantage over your team if you're not sure what they're doing because you're not familiar with that character or their ability set. However, the guns are really what matters most. And again, you can pick them. And you can choose the best gun with the best attachments. You're not even hunting for the hop ups that you would normally in the battle royale mode. So I would actually say arenas is probably a better way to get accustomed to the gameplay and to other legends and their abilities than battle royale. Another aspect is that the other team is locked into their players throughout the entire matchup, and so are you. So you have less switching around, so you get time to actually get to know that legend's abilities and the abilities of the other legends on your team. If you do go back and forth with that other team and trade over and over again, you get a lot of time fighting. And it's not so much waiting, running around, finding loot, hiding. It's really just head-to-head fighting the entire time. Way more action and way more opportunities to get hands-on experience with all of those different character abilities. And the other thing that I think is really great about arenas is that you get an instant respawn. Like you get an instant, you're back into the action. And as I said, it's more dense as far as the encounters you get to have for the amount of time you play. A lot of battle royales, you're just waiting for most of the game, and it takes that out of the equation.
It's a more intimate affair.
Interesting. Yeah. I see that Fortnite is also looking at adding an arena mode. Obviously, you think hero shooter, you think Overwatch. They had 1v1 arena mode as well. I think it's really intriguing to kind of see taking the hero shooter idea and then putting it in an arena mode style, because I mean, where arena modes really originated had nothing to do with special abilities. It was really just all about gunplay, right? And, you know, who was just better with their shots. And so I think it really provides an interesting twist on, you know, that competitive scene and the kind of like high level play that's required. It does sadly remind me a little bit of how tragic Trials of Osiris is in Destiny, and how I'm really bad at
it doesn't
mode.
feel that punishing, I promise.
Thank
it's
goodness,
not that bad.
because that is so punishing. I mean, it's broken, but punishing at the same time. But do you think that the balance feels good as someone who's played a ton of Apex? Do you think that it's gonna, you know, be a mode that really takes off?
I think so, and especially with seasoned Apex players who were looking for, again, that I could have taken the moment. I think it's definitely super satisfying when you get the chance to go right back and replay that same encounter over and over again. And for folks who are just naturally competitive, it's the biggest draw for me, 100%. So I think it's going to be pretty popular. They've also made some adjustments to some of the characters who have movement-based abilities and tacticals. So Valkyrie, for instance, doesn't fly quite as high or quite as far when she redeploys. But the actual effect or range or damage for all of the different character abilities is pretty one-to-one between Battle Royale and Arena. So the learning curve is almost non-existent. Like essentially you get all the things you wish you could have gotten when you dropped. You got your perfect loadout that you want. You got exactly, like, you know exactly where that other team is. You know the map perfectly. There's nobody else coming in to third party or disrupt your plan of action. It's just you versus them.
So you think you can coach me through some
Yes.
Apex Arena? I
Yes,
know
yes.
you've been wanting me to play forever, and I've been telling you that I would. But then it's
Giving her a little lip service.
Listen, no, it's just one more thing that I have to keep deleting from my PS5. Okay?
That's true.
Like,
That's
it's not enough
that's
room.
Well, you can
on
play
my
it
hard
on
drive.
any console now, so
Yes, crossplay
wherever you
is-
got space.
Crossplay is good on Apex. I mean, I got space. We'll figure it out. Sounds fun. Well, thanks
Everyone
for
play
the-
Apex.
Thanks for the special report. I'm glad that there's a new mode, and I'm interested. color me intrigued. The last thing we kind of wanted to talk about, since, as we mentioned, Britt can't talk about the game that she's been playing, is a game. Well, it's technically a game that became a movie. Mortal Kombat, the movie, currently streaming on HBO Max, which, by the way, broke HBO Max records as the biggest opening weekend. 3.8 million streams, I believe, beating
Sheesh.
Wonder Woman 1984, beating the Snyder Cut. of
Who wants
Justice
to watch a
League.
4-hour movie?
I thought that was incredible. I absolutely had a ball with this movie. I thought it was super fun. Was it the best movie of the year? Of course not.
It's
So
more
what were your
Kombat.
expectations going in, Andrea? Like
They
what,
were super low, right? So
Okay.
I am a giant fan of the 90s movie. Obviously, we did a watch along with it on our channel, on our Twitch channel. And I've been a longtime fan of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 2 is in my top 10 games of all time list. So it paid so much fan service to people like me who've been a fan for a really long time. And this conversation is going to be no spoilers. So don't worry. Not that there's really any spoilers to be had, quite honestly.
People fight.
Spoilers. They do the moves from the thing.
People die in gruesome ways in fighting game movies. Spoilers. But what I really loved was that they took some classic moments of just being in the Mortal Kombat fandom and they represented them on screen in really cheeky ways. And it was a really surprisingly funny movie.
Yeah.
It didn't
Yeah,
take
there were some
itself
good
too
times.
seriously. And I tweeted this, that the scene with the leg sweep was it just had me rolling. So anybody who's played any Mortal Kombat at all knows that one of the most basic moves you do is just do a leg sweep and the other character falls down. And there's so many memes and gifs of the leg sweep for Mortal Kombat. And then they did it on screen and represented it in a really hilarious way. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What do you think, Steimer?
As someone who gives zero fucks about fighting games and Mortal Kombat in general.
Okay, you're talking about me now.
Yeah, I mean, I still thought it was a fun movie. Like, it was a bit gruesome for me at times, but I definitely had to do the watch through my hands or just close my eyes and be like, tell me when it's over. But aside from that, yeah, I'm like, this is a fun, dumb movie. And I don't really understand what people's expectations necessarily were going into it if they were heavily disappointed. Because I'm like, a lot of these fights are really well done. A lot of the shots are really beautiful. I think the way that they actually set up a lot of the fatalities are cinematically just very well done. Even the shots I didn't want to see, right? Because they're really, really gruesome.
The one Kung Lao. Oh,
But I'm like, but then you also have to appreciate the way they set up the shots, right? And you're like, okay, you clearly have a really good cinematographer or whoever's working on this. And so I just thought that was really cool, the way that they were able to visually represent everything. And I thought Sub-Zero and oh my God,
Scorpion?
I was like, why am I
Scorpion?
blanking on his name? Yeah, Scorpion were awesome. And I loved them. They were amazing.
Were there a lot of moments where Andrea was like, oh my God, and you were like, I don't get it?
There were,
like,
there's definitely people who came in there where I was like, I don't know who that is, but but then they would do a move and I'd be like, oh, okay, I've kind of seen that move before in the games or whatnot. But I didn't know a few of these characters' names, but then
there were some really deep cuts characters that they brought out. Some characters from some of the middle games, which we kind of don't talk about, like Mortal Kombat 4 and 5. But I think overall, they hit on some of the biggest characters. Obviously, a lot of people complained early on when the movie was first announced that Johnny Cage wasn't going to be in the movie, and people were like, where the fuck is Johnny Cage? And it's like, they have other stories that they can tell. And quite frankly, I'm on the fence about Cole as a new character. How did you feel about Cole?
Yeah.
I thought he was fine.
Yeah,
He was fine.
Capital F fine.
I didn't think he was anything bad. I was like, yeah, you seem serviceable.
Yeah,
He was fine. It's hard because you have all these other characters you already love, so it's tough, right? He had a really large set of shoes that we didn't actually want to fill.
Yeah. That's a really great way of putting it. It's like, these are shoes that we didn't need. Like,
Nobody asked for these shoes.
We didn't.
you got so many people on the bench already, like, just use one of those characters. And like, the lore had so many different directions they could have gone. And, you know, I get that the idea was they wanted to potentially start a storyline that they could then continue. And if they only pulled from the canon of the video games, they eventually were going to get cornered. Kind of not too dissimilar to how Crystal Dynamics said, hey, we want to do an original story set in the Marvel's universe that isn't tied to the MCU. And in order to do that, we're going to have to kind of ruffle some feathers and do our own thing and kind of go against people's expectations. And I think what was great about what WB and NetherRealm did with the movie is that they said, we're still going to try to pay fan tribute to some things in the franchise that people know and love. I thought Cole's whole story with like the daughter and the wife was a little like contrived, unnecessary, and everyone's speculating that it was his like sister, and then you're like, wait,
I
she's your
did not
daughter?
know that was his kid at the first moments of the scene. I was like,
Nobody
huh?
did.
I think that's just because they look very young, so it's it throws you off a little bit. Obviously, they could have clearly had her when they were super young, but yeah,
Sure.
Yeah,
they just
but tell that story.
but tell
then,
it,
right?
yeah. They probably should have outlined it a little clearer, because there was a moment where I was like, who is this chick supposed to be? Is this like a cousin or
Yeah.
like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and the idea that he was just born with this like dragon-shaped birthmark is like, dude, that's not a birthmark, Avi.
I do love it. They're like, yeah, it's a birthmark. I was like,
No.
That's such a trope, though.
How
Even
dumb
in
are you?
JRPGs.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like you see that all the time. Like, yeah, I was just a random kid, grew up in a poor village with a random birthmark. All these crazy things just happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh.
you're like the world's most specific and delicately applied birthmark.
But Britt, you asked like what my expectations were, and those were my expectations going in.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
this is Mortal Kombat. Like, the narrative is not the most deep and meaningful thing that's ever been written in the world of video games. Like, I'm going in expecting to see some fun fight scenes and some cool CGI and have a great time. Now, they didn't give me the payoff on the song that I wanted. I wanted that moment where they played the whole theme song, and I didn't quite get
you got
it.
some
They just
hints.
teased it. Yeah.
Some hints here and there.
I know, but it was like, I don't want to dare I use the term blue balls. It was like,
Oh.
it was bad. It was bad. I was like,
Aw.
oh, there it is. And then they stopped, and I was like, oh.
Oh, you got blue
But
balls.
we have more chances. Like with who is it? The Hiroyuki Sanada is signed up, I think, for 5 movies.
The actor
the
probably
franchise?
said 0. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, maybe they'll do it next time.
Yeah, you gotta save some bits, right? Like
Yeah.
they're definitely hoping for more in the future, and I don't
They-
blame them
they
for being like,
are.
we can't show all our cards right now.
It's true. I think that a lot of people were holding their breath, though, of like, is this going to flop spectacularly? And then they pull, you know, any future funding for more. But it clearly did very well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
I'd watch another one.
I would definitely watch another one again, and I don't even really care for these movies or care for the gore, but I was like, yeah, it was fun. Whatever, we had popcorn.
it was better than Annihilation, that's for sure.
100%.
Didn't see it, but I'll take your word for it.
Don't bother watching Annihilation. It's
Yeah.
not worth your time.
Fair enough.
Just watch the 95 one again.
Ah, so good. Steimer's
So
never
good.
seen that one.
I have not.
Okay, well, homework.
Yeah, we'll watch it.
It's
I'm not
not
gonna
as
watch it
gory.
by myself.
No,
not
it's
as gory.
not. It's not. It's not
Okay.
nearly as gory at all. But
That's
yeah.
good.
Oof, this one was definitely way gorier.
There
than
was
I
definitely,
Mhm.
I will obviously won't say whose, but there was definitely guts. There was entrails.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
surprising to me. I did not expect that.
I was
moment.
like, oh
Huh.
no, we're about to eat dinner.
But they, to their credit, they almost shot for shot took some of the classic character fatalities straight from the
Yes.
newer games. So like we're talking the like way that they've redid the animations, like Mortal Kombat 9 and forward, and redid them on screen, and boy oh boy was it visceral.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I think it did a good job of threading that needle though between cartoonish and realistic to the point where it didn't feel like a Saw movie kind of
Oh,
gore.
no.
right.
It
Yeah.
definitely felt like over the top ridiculous. So it was definitely more on the tolerable side. So if you're
Yeah.
worried about gore, you'll probably be okay-ish. But
Yeah,
There'll be a couple
like I said,
moments
there was
you'll be
only
like,
it was just a
cover your
couple of
eyes,
moments where
but-
I was like, I really can't. I'm just gonna close my eyes here. But like, that was not the whole movie by any means.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in fact, a lot of the stuff I was like, oh, holy shit, the way they shot that was really cool.
Great fight scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it was
this
fun.
is not a spoiler because I think it's in the trailer. But like the shotgun blast that he freezes,
Yeah.
I was like, that is fucking cool. I
That
mean,
was
it's
cool.
also terrifying because it can't imagine you being like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here.
Yeah. Britt.
Oh, Brittany
Pixel
doing her
Brit.
pixel dance. She thought she was safe behind the wall of pixels.
I love it. So many clippable moments from this episode. But that is going to do it for our hands-on impressions of what we've been playing and watching for this week. We do have one more fun segment for you guys. It is our monthly Patreon produced segment. Plus, we love to do our shout outs. Stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. It is the final segment of the What's Good Games podcast, and this is our Patreon-produced segment for the month of April. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful patrons at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames for supporting our voices in the video game space and really just being an all-around lovely group of human beings. Thank you so much for all you do and for making us feel special, warm and fuzzy inside. We're going to get to the topic of the Patreon produced segment in just a second, but this is the time of the month where we shout out all of our elite patrons and above. And, mispronounce a name or 2 or 10.
Or all of them.
Exactly. So Steimer, why don't you kick things off? I'll pick it up and then Britt will bring it home.
Sounds fantastic. Let's start off with Layne.
And then Chris Fernandez,
Jill Toner.
Patrick Craverly.
Lidl Chew,
Erskine James.
Nicholas Trau.
Nicholas Perry,
Casual blasphemy.
Bernicia Cunningham.
Cristina Azevedo,
Nick 25.
Kate Ryder.
Stephen M. Schneider,
Omega Buster.
Jason Luck.
Dustin Toby,
DK2112.
ProgramAlice.
The Male Escort,
The Supreme Commander of the Cyber Chihuahua Ninja Army.
Sean Smith.
Nick Hahn,
Daniel Hall.
Bang Zoo Pow.
Alexandra David,
Flying Cosmo.
Eric Z.
Carla Callahan,
Nathan Watkins.
Herm Chewy Godson.
Michaela Sage,
Mick the Nanobiologist. Abrahamson. Sorry.
ExcessOddities.
Al Tribesman,
Retro Sloth.
Storm in May.
Tara Bruno,
Brittany Heath.
Trent Berry.
Sean I,
Justin Foss.
Brian R. Johnson.
Justin Foshee,
Jasmine Sains.
Patrick Landry.
Punkdefied,
Lehnert.
Jose Perez.
Melenthius Owens,
Professor Woke.
Brian Harper.
Patrick Higgins,
Kenneth Stimmel.
Zach Hershey.
Even Flow,
Two.
Trent Pennington.
Emily Kent.
Roland Bala,
I'm Donovan.
Faris Attieh.
Gary Oxborough,
Jessica Bloom.
Patrick Wella.
Matthew Golder,
Goder.
And Noel Navarez.
Tyler
I
McCall.
feel like you always land on that name too.
I know, and I can never do it. Devin Nitz,
Adriana Rock Williams.
Shy Jackson Burgess.
Allison McCarthy,
Mohammed Mohammed.
Chris Wilson.
Renate Burns,
Samantha Yvonne.
Natalie.
Joselle Bassa,
Andrew Susan.
Gary Peck.
Dale Sun,
Nam Bui.
Robert F. Freimering.
Carl Milne,
Marcus Ian Brown.
Pete Shoemaker.
Carl Peterson,
Joe Kennison.
Bill Stillwell.
Reagan Inson,
Teresa Einer.
Jason Demers.
Alex Rigopulos,
Andrew Colton.
Kia B.
David Icolucci,
Joe Schlief.
Christian Rodriguez.
Elmo Shell,
Elizabeth Brook.
Gio Corsi.
Molly Bittner,
German Howard,
Ozzy Mieha.
Nicole Humphrey,
Stephanie Fitzwilliam,
John Drake.
and Trevor Starkey. Thank you, one. Thank you all to our fantastic patrons. I hope you enjoyed your shouts outs. Now, Brittany, what is our Patreon produced segment topic for this month? And welcome back, Rihanna.
Thank you.
Yay! The winner was a topic submitted by Cristina Azevedo, and the topic is, hello, ladies. I hope your week is going well. I don't know why I'm giving you this voice, Christina. Apologies. When it comes to lack of women's representation in esports and game development, do you think this notion can be changed through educational tasks and countering gender-specific socialization? What are things we can do to help change the narrative? Thanks.
So, Christina,
Great question.
we're definitely going to get Ree's perspective on this because she wasn't part of our conversation last month. But we did touch on quite a few of these peripheral topics in our Women's History Month conversation around women's representation in games and kind of what can we do about it. So we're not going to retread too much of that. We do have our runner-up question that we're going to get to. But Ree, I would love to hear from you about, kind of your thoughts on Christina's question.
Yeah. I can't speak specifically to esports, but in game development and in the gaming industry in general, it's really important that we recognize what data tells us about women advancing and taking up more space so that they can reach equity with their counterparts in all industries, but especially in gaming. And something that is very apparent is that women are fully capable of accomplishing all of these tasks and fulfilling all of these roles that are historically not granted to them or they don't get the opportunity to go up for. So a couple of things that are really important is supporting women who are out there and doing their thing and really successful at it, but also for those people and for people around them to give them resources to be mentors. It's important that white men, cis het folks, people who have traditionally gotten roles that are in the gaming space, reach out to a more diverse, a broader, a less homogenous counterparts and find a network of people to bring them into the space and to bring them up into the roles that they currently occupy. Something that we see in many, many different studies is that women typically don't get the correct feedback or the same amount of constructive feedback as their male counterparts and men in the space. And it's especially for women of color. And it's while it's fine that people are uncomfortable maybe criticizing women or people of color or people that they don't really identify with or don't feel comfortable being themselves around, it's important to give people feedback so that they can learn and grow and improve. It's also important to give them the resources to do so. So you can't help somebody advance without understanding what it is that they need to improve upon. And part of that does come along with mentorship. So that's definitely number one. Mentorship and giving really good constructive feedback as well as resources will make a difference for a lot of people who are traditionally disenfranchised or misrepresented or underrepresented in the spaces that they should occupy, such as gaming. Another thing that's really, really important is throwing money behind the intention. Diversity, equity, and inclusion organizations need help. They need funding. They need to provide resources like training courses that maybe could be a really great inroad to becoming somebody who works in the esports industry rather than, gatekeeping with a certification exam. There are things that take manpower and effort and money in order to pull off and to really change the structural systemic systems that we currently have that don't support bringing in women or people of color or people who traditionally don't have the ability to enter those spaces on their own. So I would say two things. Again, mentorship, everything that goes along with it, and also supporting organizations who are doing that really great work with either time, your expertise, or with funding. That's my personal opinion.
Girl, I feel like we need to clip that, and that's like a perfect mini seminar on how to make some real change.
How to not be shit.
Yeah, be a better person. It's almost like you are passionate about this and have spoken on this before.
Almost.
Oh, maybe once or twice.
No, I think a lot of what you said is so true, and things that we obviously championed this topic quite a bit here at What's Good Games, being a women-run team and having, suffered a lot of discrimination and setbacks, obstacles, hurdles throughout our careers in the video games industry, and hoping that, the women coming up behind us don't have to go through a lot of those same things. And thankfully it is so much better today than when any of us started in the games industry. I think what you said is super important about, diversity and inclusion initiatives at companies, and how that needs to be a focus, right? Like, companies need to be actively thinking about that. We've thankfully seen a lot of major publishers come forward to say, hey, these things are important to us and we want to focus on them. But I don't think we've seen it as much as I would have liked. It's like, it's great that Ubisoft has come forward and said, hey, we have this new program. We made these great hires to try to really fix what was clearly broken inside of our organization. But it's like, every company needs to have those, We're just not quite there yet.
And you need to pay people to do it. You need to give them time to do it. It can't be, oh, you do your job and then you also manage this effort. It has to be something that's given dedicated resources. So hopefully we see more of that.
Amen. But yeah, I mean,
Word.
I feel like I have nothing to add.
No.
Yeah. That was a pretty good summarization.
If people want to hear the conversation that we had for Women's History Month, talking more in depth about women's representation in video games, that conversation is part of the podcast. It's publicly available. It's not behind our Patreon paywall. It is in the April 2nd episode. So if you guys want to look that up either on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app, if you missed it, you can check that out. And of course, got those lovely timestamps if you just want to skip right to that conversation. But we also have another winning topic, Brittany, that was up this month, and that is from Josh, it looks like.
Yeah, Josh Gamez. Don't know if that's your real last name, but it's a nice name.
I suspect not.
How much, if at all, has Cyberpunk 2077 impacted the way you all look at the pre-release cycle for big budget games?
I love this question, mostly because we also have two former devs in the conversation. Obviously can't speak to any specifics about any situations that you were in, just get that out of the way. But I think what was interesting about the whole Cyberpunk 2077 situation was we did a news story not that long ago that was like, they weren't really impacted at all financially.
They were for a bit. They tanked on their stock, but
Stocks, yeah.
I don't know if that. I haven't checked to see if it has since recovered.
I don't know if
I
they
assume
fully
it
recovered,
probably
but I
has,
imagine that they will by the end of 2021.
Yeah,
for sure. But looking at the pre-release cycle for a big budget game, it's so tough to know right now, like, what the long-term impacts are going to be, because I think a lot of the pre-release changes that we're seeing are in fact pandemic related and COVID-19 production delay related, and not related to like looking at the market and what's happened with other games. Because I think everybody's just kind of treading water right now, trying to figure out like, how can we make it through the other side of this pandemic? It feels like, we're making progress, with vaccines, but the United States' situation is very different than the situation in Asia, than the situation in Europe. And like, it's going to be a little bit before we're out of the pandemic economic mess that we're currently in. And so I think, looking at the way that CD Projekt Red handled the pre-release, I think there's definitely some lessons learned for sure, particularly about how you release review code and how you message review code, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think, for us who've been covering and reviewing games for a while, when we didn't get a code for this game until it was a day before release, we had a sneaking suspicion that something was going on, and I know there were a lot of articles at that time saying, we don't have a review code yet, so sorry, we can't tell you what the score is. There's no embargo because the game's gonna come out by the time we get the review code. I think a lot of people are savvy enough now to know that, okay, big red flag, we know this means something no bueno is going on. But I remember leading up to the release of Cyberpunk, a question we commonly got was, every week, can this game live up to the hype? Is it possible for a game this hyped to live up to it? And I think we were all kind of like, well, but yeah, it's kind of fascinating looking back on this and just seeing how much, I don't want to say flop, because they clearly performed well, you know, in terms of if you look at the numbers. And granted, like, yeah, you had your game pulled from PSN. That happens all the time. It's a totally normal thing that happens.
What?
Like how
It's not.
pixely you've been this whole episode.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But anywho, yeah. It's just kind of fun to look back and like follow it from start to finish. And now we see where we're at, and we're starting to see what maybe the long-term effects will be later down the road. But I think, what was it, 30,000 copies that were refunded? That was it.
Out of over, it was like over 13.7 million copies sold, and only 30,000 refunds were processed by CDPR's refund project. And like, that to me is bonkers. And obviously there was a ton of support for the game, particularly the PC version. A lot of people really coming forward and saying, I loved this game. It was my personal game of the year. I thought this game was great. And I think that what's interesting about what they did is like they clearly knew that they had like a great game on their hands. It's just the rollout was just not great. But this is also like a shout out to like all of the marketing and PR people that work in the field of video games, and just how difficult that job actually is. And so much of it is behind the scenes. Ree, do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, being one of those people behind the scenes dealing with the game that had to get delayed several times and then finally putting out. Absolutely. The question from Josh was like, how much has it impacted the way you look at the pre-release cycle? Not much, because I am fully in the camp of, if the game isn't ready, don't put it out. And it's tough because in any software release, but especially in games, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be what every single developer wants it to be by the time it really just needs to get pushed out the door. And it's really tough to thread that needle into to balance the needs of getting the thing out there into the people's hands so that you can start iterating and patching and developing additional content, versus it just really needs to bake longer. And the transparency is so important, especially when you know that folks will not be getting what they expect. And if you've done your job well marketing something, they should be hyped. You know, they should be having high expectations. They should be saying, this is going to be Second Life. Like, I'm going to spend all of my time in Cyberpunk. That's the goal. But if you know that you're not going to be able to deliver that, it's a responsibility that you need to be able to give that asterisk and say, hey, eventually it'll get there. You're part of the journey with us. Like help us make it what you want it to be, rather than saying you're going to get everything you've ever dreamed of right now when you know you can't deliver on it. So it doesn't really change my opinion on pre-game release cycle. It just strengthens my opinion that if it needs to be delayed, it should be delayed, and should be as transparent as possible.
Yeah. Reed's just coming with the truth bombs in this Patreon produced segment. I think that that's really just what gamers want, right, is the transparency. I think we've really established a community and a culture in a digital era of authenticity. I think the rise of digital media, particularly vloggers and really the rise of YouTube, has led this wave of people demanding a level of authenticity and transparency that we were kind of okay with pushing aside for a really long time. And now it's like, nah, dog, like, don't lie to us. We can see through your shadiness, and just don't do that. And clearly gaming audiences have responded pretty positively when companies come out and say, yo, we messed up. We need to be honest with you about what's going wrong. And we hope that you guys can be patient with us and forgive us. And while there's always going to be the vocal minority naysayers who are just want to see the world burn, we all know this. I think for the most part, gaming audiences are very forgiving when they don't think that they're being lied to or being tricked, right? Mm-hmm. If they think that the publishers and the developers are being honest with them, then they're like, that's cool. Take your time. Fix it. We're here for you. Obviously, like, however many millions of people who bought the game at launch that had the opportunity to get a refund were like, nah, dog, it's all good. We'll wait. We'll wait until you fix it, right? Like, I was surprised
they were
when
just
those numbers
lazy.
came out.
Or they didn't even look on the internet, which is probably most of them, and didn't know it was even an option.
Or that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, yeah, like the community on the internet that's very loud and on Twitter, so small in terms of percentage of people who are actually playing these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was interesting because it seemed to pin a lot on Cyberpunk, which makes sense because it was a kerfuffle of of the ages. But
A kerfuffle of the ages. I like it.
Love that.
But I mean, like, it made me think back to actually like Fallout 4, and how even that game, even though like was disappointing, I think, to a lot of people, and just like expectations that get set that aren't set by publishers. So I think Cyberpunk is actually one of these instances. And Ree, you were talking about like if you're a marketer, your job is to hype these up. I would argue that in some cases the marketers don't even have to do that. The community will amp itself up. And I think that's honestly where the danger lies, because you are no longer in control of it, and it's really hard to contain that. And it's really hard to set expectations when you aren't the one even like beating the drum. And I see it a lot, even in terms of like people, I think when people go a little extra with their fanfare, for instance, and folks being like, oh, it's just fun to speculate. It's fun to do these things. It's fun to whatever. And I'm like, sure. But at the end of the day, you are creating expectations for yourself that are outside of the scope of what this team is possibly capable of doing. And now you're putting that on the team to go and correct you when they never even remotely said anything like that in the first place. And that's just too much to ask, in my opinion. You cannot expect developers or marketing teams to correct everything, every crackpot theory that like comes out on the internet just to realign your expectations. And I think that people are starting to expect that, which is not okay. Like you can't ask that of people. They're like, well, it's bullshit that so-and-so didn't show up at the final act because this one pixel in the corner of this trailer indicated that they would, and I can't believe that they did this. And I'm just like, yo, please spend your time doing other things. Please find a new hobby.
Please, just please.
Yeah.
Please
I mean,
stop.
I totally get that, and I am one of those people who like to hype my shit up. But at the same time, like I know when to reel myself in.
Yeah,
It's fun
you're
to
self-aware.
speculate. Yeah. I'm like, okay, like let's, and I think knowing a little bit of how game dev works and how the whole process works helps, because I know like you can't just snap your fingers and make something happen. When it was announced that I was hosting the Resident Evil showcase, I can't tell you how many people reached out to me and asked me to tell Capcom to fix or add some new modes to like Resident Evil 3 Remake, for example. I was like,
And not how this works.
that's not how this works. They're like, we just want this little feature like implemented in Resident Evil 3, like this one little feature. I'm like, it's not a little feature. Do you know how many man hours that takes? Like how much work that is? People don't know. And yeah, you're right, Steimer. I think that's where you get into trouble. People don't understand. And then they like, why do you mean you can't give me the Resident Evil HD collection on every console possible? Why can't you make that happen?
And the idea that you would be the person to ask for that, not that you should be asking a dev for anything unless they specifically call for feedback on Twitter, which sometimes they do.
Yep.
But I have so many friends that work in the video games dev side of the business that are just tweeting about normal everyday things in their life, what their kids are doing, the pizza they ordered for lunch, just normal things. And in their mentions are just all of these angry fan boys and girls being like, I want this thing from this game that you work on. And they're like, yo, like, I work in the graphics department. I don't know what you want me to do.
And they're like, well, you shouldn't be on Twitter if you don't want feedback. And you're like, that's not how this works.
Like, I didn't ask you to follow me.
Yeah, like I didn't ask you to talk to me even. Like
block.
you can go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I get people being maybe perhaps like consumers being a little more cautious after the Cyberpunk launch. But I also think that as much as we like to pat ourselves on the back, we as gamers have a collective, very short-term memory. And soon the next big hype thing will come along. And I guarantee you people will just be just as hype about that. And
Mass Effect Legendary Edition, let's go!
Not one lesson will be learned from this. People will continue to pre-order things without seeing shit because
Everyone
it's fun.
forgot that.
Because it's fun. That's literally it. That's all I gotta say. Like, I don't anticipate this wildly changing anything for any AAA studio. I think pre-orders will still come. I think people will obviously still complain at launch, no matter how well the game is received.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not just games. Like, we just saw it with Mortal Kombat, like WandaVision, like all the shows that popped up saying, like, it's going to be this. And, like, no, it wasn't, like, at all. Like, we were all wrong. And it's going to happen with Loki. It's going to happen with everything. Like, people love hype. And that's great. Hype is wonderful. We love sharing our excitement for things. And, you know, like Brittany said, like, it's nice to get yourself riled up every once in a while. But you do have to be reasonable with your expectations.
Yeah, don't let your fandom run amok, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to be a fan, and that's why we all love being part of the video games community, is because we're excitable fans about the things that we love. When you let your fandom and your expectations of the things that you're fans of overtake your common sense and your human decency of all things, that's when you got a problem, right? And maybe you need to walk your fandom back a little bit and go, hey, this fandom doesn't belong to me. Right? It belongs to an entire group of people, and the creators are a big part of that. And when you're disrespecting creators of your fandom, you got a real problem, you know?
yeah.
Just be cool.
Be cool, bro.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
Life would be so much easier if you were all cool.
Words to live by, ladies and gentlemen. And that is going to do it for our show for this week. Riana Manuel, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to have you back. If people want to watch you stream in Apex or talking about stuff on the interwebs, where can people follow you?
You can catch me streaming Apex very inconsistently over at twitch.tv/Rihanna. Twitch is now. And I will always post whenever I'm streaming on Twitter. And I do much more there and post a lot more stuff there about DE&I, random TV shows I'm watching, butts and boobies that I like to call out is great. Whatever it is, it's on my Twitter. That's Rihanna Tweets Now, RIANA Tweets Now.
And what's the status on your dance videos that you were posting on Insta and on TikTok? What's
they
happening
slowed
with those?
down.
You're like,
down.
work and stuff, and then I sleep and stuff.
Yeah, no, I really want to do more dance videos. I have a bunch saved up that I'm going to work on at some point. So they'll probably make a comeback, and hopefully I can be a little bit more consistent, because it's actually a really good workout for me to have to do that every week. So
nice.
We'll
So
see if they come back soon.
You bring your dance videos back when I bring What's Good Wine back.
Okay, deal.
We'll make a pact.
We'll do it.
It'll be great. And then one day we'll make a What's Good Wine dance video.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Is that just drunk
where we
dancing?
drink wine and attempt to do a dance together.
That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
It's going to be a catastrophe, but I'm here for it. I'm willing to put forth some effort. Well, thank you so much again for being on the show, and thank you to all of our patrons at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames for supporting the show and for submitting your topics every month for that Patreon produced segment. We love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.